EMG Geezer Butler Signature Solderless PJ Pickup Set Install and Demo. Introduction. I've featured this bass in several videos now. I call it the Frankenbass. It's the neck of a Fender Player Jaguar bass on the body of a Squier Affinity Precision bass with a Goto bridge, a DiMarzio Ultra Jazz bridge pickup, and a few cosmetic tweaks. In a recent video, I tried to give this bass an objective review, and I gave it a 91 out of 100. The weak spots in that review were the pickups, which I rated 6 out of 10, and the electronics, which I rated 8 out of 10. The main issue with the pickups is that the Squier split coil pickup and the DiMarzio bridge pickup didn't blend well, to the point where not only could I not use them together, but because the DiMarzio's output was so much lower, I really couldn't use it at all in a performance setting. So I wanted a new pickup set that was designed to work together. After exploring various options, I settled on the EMG Geezer Butler Signature PJ set. I especially like the fact that this set comes with a complete solderless installation kit, since I'm notoriously bad at soldering. Let's dive in and see what's in the package, how easy or not it was to install, and how it feels to play. Who is Geezer Butler? For anyone who doesn't know, Geezer Butler is the bassist for Black Sabbath. I will admit I'm not a huge Black Sabbath fan, although I really do like their first couple of albums, which honestly sound more to me like a jazz-influenced jam band than nascent heavy metal. Geezer in particular brought a swinging groove to the low end of those early 70s recordings. These pickups were designed to replicate his classic punchy P-bass tone. Back in 2020, during the COVID shutdown, one of my bandmates and I did a series of comedy music videos, including a mashup of Black Sabbath's Iron Man with Alanis Morissette's Ironic. Here's a brief clip of the jam section, where I did my best Geezer Butler impression on a Mustang bass. Link to the full video in the description below. Unboxing. So here we have the box for the Geezer Butler pickups. Nice box. Inside there's some dense foam protecting the pickups, the potentiometers, the output jack, and all of the prepared wires wrapped in plastic. Then we have the instructions, also wrapped in plastic and very hard to get out. They really want to protect those instructions. Here's a quick look at the instruction sheet. The diagrams are well designed, but do require a few more brain cells than I was hoping to engage at this particular moment. Anyway, let's take off the strings and get started with the installation. Installation. First, I loosened the strings and moved them out of the way. I didn't remove them entirely because I don't want the silk windings to unravel even further. Then off came the pickguard, knobs, and the nuts holding the pots onto the pickguard. I also removed the plate for the output jack so I can pull the jack through the body when I remove all of the old wiring. Next, I removed the pickups and unwound my splices with the wiring on the pots. As I mentioned, I do not solder, but I found over many pickup swaps that it works just fine to strip about a ½ inch of the sheath off the ends of the wires, wrap them together, and then cover the splice with electrical tape. So I'm just undoing that work here to be able to remove everything. As you can see in these shots, Squier did a decent, not perfect, but decent, job of painting the cavities with conductive paint for RF shielding, and they had ground wires attached to that shielding in each cavity. Okay, with the old pickups removed, it was time to dig into the package for the new ones. I started with the wires. I needed to get a handle on what I was dealing with here. EMG provided a set of bundled wires of varying lengths, with plug connectors that attach to the bottoms of the pickups and potentiometers. I had to measure the wires and compare them to the instructions to make sure I was using the right wires in the right locations. Next, I plugged the wires into the bottoms of the pickups. Sorry some of this is outside of the shot. I was dealing with a new setup for this particular video. With the wires connected to the bridge pickup, I then fed them through the hole connecting the bridge pickup cavity to the main cavity. I still marvel at exactly how they drill these holes. I cut some strips out of the foam from the package to use under the pickups. This is important because it pushes the pickups upwards against the screws, allowing for height adjustment. If the foam wasn't there, the pickups would just fall to the bottom of the cavity. Then it was time to connect the other ends of the wires to the volume and tone potentiometers. I have to admit the diagrams challenged me a bit here. The pots each have 6 pins on the bottom, and you're connecting 2 or 3 wire plugs, each of which contains 2 or 3 wires. The plugs have to be oriented correctly, and they have to go on the correct pins. Also, the neck pickup only uses 5 of the 6 pins. It's all logical, but complicated. In addition to the wires connecting the pickups to the pots to each other, and the tone pot to the output jack, there's also a ground wire for each, which all go into the ground bus and then to the grounding wire under the bridge via a special connector supplied with the package. More on that in a minute. I was a bit confused by the connectors for the output jack. The diagram had the 2 contacts labeled S and T, but the actual jack didn't have labels. The white wire is hot and the black one is ground, so I assume it does matter which goes where. I just connected them in the orientation shown in the diagram and hoped it would all work. With everything connected, I screwed down the pickups, attached the pots to the pickguard, and reassembled everything. Before restringing though, I wanted to test to make sure everything was actually working, so I plugged the bass into my amp, held the G string across the pickup, and plucked. We have sound! I tested both volume pots individually and together, as well as the tone pot. Everything seems good, except, geez, there's a surprising amount of buzz, especially with the tone turned all the way up. Time to address the grounding situation. I was immediately a bit skeptical of the grounding situation with this pickup set. I understand that not every bass has shielded cavities, much less grounding wires attached to the shielding. I've talked before about how I was surprised that the Squier Affinity came that way. Not that I'm complaining. The set is designed so that the grounding wires from each pot connect to a grounding bus, which then has a single connection to the grounding wire under the bridge. If that's your only grounding point, so be it, but it could be better. EMG tried to make this a simple installation, so it makes sense that they wouldn't expect you to add shielding paint or foil yourself, but it's unfortunate they didn't provide a few extra options. When I tested the pickups connected to my amp, I was shocked at the amount of buzz. Granted, this is a brand new setup, and I'm not sure how good the wiring in this room is, but I still didn't expect what I heard. I figured at that point, since I still had the bass taken apart, I might as well at least try reinstalling the Squier grounding wires. I also, removed the bridge just to make sure its grounding wire hadn't slipped out of position. Removing a 5-screw bridge is tedious enough, especially with arthritis, but a 7-screw bridge is just cruel. Anyway, everything looked good. So after reattaching the bridge, I cut the single-use crimp connector EMG provided, stripped the ends of all 4 wires, wrapped them together, and reconnected the wires to the shielding in the cavities. Again, I don't solder, and trust me, it's for the best. I reinstalled the pickups, reattached the pickguard, and tested again. The buzz was almost completely gone. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that better shielding in the cavities would help. There are a few bare spots Squier missed with paint. I considered getting out my copper foil and really doing it up right, but I didn't want to take the time for something that would probably only make a very slight difference. Before restringing, I took a minute to have another look at some of the various pickguards I have on hand. I have to admit, I'm really feeling that orange one right now. especially since the cutouts for the split pickup and the mint pickguard are unnecessarily big for the EMG pickups. They're a pretty tight fit with the orange one though. In the end, I stuck with mint, for now, but mainly just because I already had the pots attached to it. With that, I restrung the bass and attached the knobs. I'm sticking with my intentionally mismatched tone knob, but I really think it works well now with the ivory color of the EMG pickups. The old DiMarzio was cream colored, which sounds like a pretty minor difference, but it's not. Now they're almost a perfect match. Now, unfortunately, I didn't record comprehensive tone demos with the old pickups. I installed these at the end of a hectic week of activity around the house. I had a 2-hour window after getting my studio space set up before I had to leave to drive 100 miles to a pit orchestra rehearsal, which was just enough time to get these pickups installed and take a shower. By this point, it was time for me to hit the shower so I could get on the road to make it to my rehearsal. Tone demos had to wait for another day. Fortunately, you don't have to. Tone demos. Final thoughts and revised score. My main impetus for installing these new pickups was to get a more usable combination for greater tonal versatility. As I mentioned earlier, the two pickups I initially had in this bass didn't like each other, but this set was designed to work together. I also said earlier that I thought the stock Squier volume and tone pots were fine, but could be better. Wow, could they ever. The EMG pots are still only 250K, but they are excellent. They taper off evenly, plus they just feel really nice to turn. That detail matters because anytime I make a volume or tone adjustment, I want to feel like I'm interacting with an object of quality. I still feel like the bridge pickup's output is a bit weaker than the split pickup, but they're much closer than before. I feel like I can compensate for the difference by just getting in the habit of only turning the split pickup up to around 8 or 9 when soloed instead of to 10. Physically lowering the split pickup might also help a bit. Blending the two pickups actually works too. I can hear a smooth gradient of combining the sounds compared to how it was before, an all or nothing sound with output that drops noticeably when both pickups were all the way up. Overall, I'm just extremely impressed with this package. I still feel like it's maybe not absolutely perfect, but it's as close as I need it to be. So let's revise the score. Before I get to that, let's take a look at the price to score matrix I introduced in my last review video. These pickups were $199. I paid an extra $10 to get ivory instead of black. So that brings the total cost of the bass from $901 to exactly $1,100. At that price, the bass needs to score a 93. Does it? With the old pickups and electronics, I rated this bass a 91 out of 100, with the pickups scoring a 6 out of 10 and the electronics an 8 out of 10. With the new EMG setup in place, I'm going to give the pickups a 9. I still wish there was a bit more output on the bridge pickup, but this is definitely a workable and versatile combination. I'm also going to give the electronics a 9. I would have given them a 10, but that workaround I had to do with the grounding nixed what would otherwise be a perfect setup. Combined, this bumps the overall score of the bass up by 4 points to 95 out of 100. As much as I try to be objective with these scores, obviously there's going to be some of my own bias involved. My personal tastes affect how I feel about a particular feature. And since I handpicked all the elements of this bass, of course it's tailored to those personal tastes. Whether or not anyone else would pick up this bass and give it a 95 out of 100, I can't say. But it doesn't matter because it's mine and I love it. That's all for this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.